low standards and I meet them all the time.
Sorry, I've just put the recording.
In Singapore?
What's that?
How's everything in Singapore?
Oh, we've been very busy with Formula One and everything here, being inundated by all you Europeans floating in.
Yeah. Oh, I have to confess, I am missing Singapore that much, because in the past I was there like 4 to 5 times a year, and I'm missing traveling to Southeast Asia that much. I will probably be there in around probably April of next year. Would be great if you were around for eventually having a drink or a dinner together, but I'm gonna send you a mail, then you see whether you will be around and whether you have the time and can dedicate me a couple of hours.
Sure. I mean, yeah, we're in a strange period, as Robert will tell you, where some people are demanding that we go and have external dinners, while others are saying, no, let's do Zoom calls. So we're not sure which way it's going, but I think it's heading gradually back towards the normal of, people physically being in a place. Yeah.
I'll probably be there for the Gambero Rosso event that is going to be held in Singapore, I believe, somewhere in April, because again, 2 consecutive years, one after the other, we received now the 3 glasses for our Quintessenz Schiava, the Caltern. So I'm probably going to attend the event in Singapore in spring next year, but I will text you.
Yeah, all right. I got some views on that, but we can talk about that later, because the Gambler are also a little bit weird what they do here. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So Rob, do I have to post anything up here? Or...
Yeah, we can. It's all right. I'm sort of on it now.
Do you want me to do it, or are you doing it?
It's okay. I've just got it yet. 2 of the wines are sold out, and number 3, the Quintessence SB, is also only a couple of bottles. Okay, we're on 7 o'clock. Martin, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight here in Singapore. It's particularly cool for me to meet you, having heard so much about you and so much about Cantina Kaltern. I think Lou's been there twice now to visit. So it's going to be really cool to be able to work our way through all of these wines. I must say that I think I've done 2 wine dinners in the last couple of years, both before COVID, BC. But on both those occasions, the one thing that really impressed me the most was the sense of clarity and precision about all the wines, from the humblest of Grigio all the way to your most demanded wines, the Cabernet and the Pinot Neros. So it's going to be great to sit down again and just see how these are rolling. So I'm going to hand over to you. We'll do a quick Q&A at the end. You've got your PowerPoint with you on your side, so ask you to take it from here.
Lovely. I thank you very much for the introduction, Robert. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and hello from Italy to Singapore. I'm very, very honored and very, very happy for having been invited to host this today's online tasting. Particular thanks I would like to address at this point, of course, to Mr. Lou and Mr. Robert that give us great support. And as Robert just mentioned, I would like to introduce you to Cantina Kaltern by sharing my screen with you as I prepared a couple of slides of presentation. If I am too wordy, if you have got any questions or any comments, I'll be very happy to also receive some feedback from your end. I'm going to share my screen with you now, and I hope it works. Maybe someone could eventually give me a green light.
Sounds good. Looks good. Thank you.
Lovely. So a warm welcome to Kaltern, dear wine lovers from Singapore. As I just said, I'm very, very honored and happy to be with you tonight. Thank you very much for attending. A very quick introduction about myself. My name is Martin Klammer. I am more, I would say, a sales and marketing person rather than a real wine expert. However, 2 years ago, I made my passion profession and became sales and marketing director of Cantina Kaltern. Before, I used to work for an Italian company producing high-end wafers and chocolates called Loacker, and there it's the ones doing the Quarantini cubes. Maybe the one or the other of you are familiar of Loacker. However, why am I saying this? Seeing that we have a wine online tasting, because my background mainly is also about Southeast Asia and China. And I have to say that I'm very, very much in love with the place you're living in, very, very much in love with the place you stay. And I traveled to Singapore like up to 25 times in life during the 5 years at Loacker. And I'm really missing you guys. I'm missing the country and I'm missing the place. Well, welcome also from two other gentlemen of our Cantina. On the left-hand side is Christian. Christian is the president of our board of management, and Andrea Moser is our chief enologist. I would propose the following, seeing that you will probably already be eager to get a first drop of wine of the selection that Lou and Robert made for our tonight's online tasting. And I would therefore say, before I do proceed with my presentation, with my introduction, please get ready for pouring. The first wine is our so-called Vial. Vial from Pinot Bianco grape or Pinot Blanc is our intermediate quality line called selection line. And I would simply invite you to just pour your first wine into your glasses. Eventually, I'm going to say a few words about every wine. If I am not too technical or if you have got any additional questions, you please let me know at any time, because seeing that I do not know much about, say, your flight level of wines, I don't want to be too technical. However, please interrupt me anytime for questions. So I would invite you just to have the first nose of our Vial Pinot Bianco vintage 2021. You will immediately feel a certain complexity of the wine. You will immediately feel the typicity of Pinot Bianco. And while
we're doing the Bianco 20. It's correct 20, on your slides, yeah. Because definitely what's coming through is that secondary maturation, which I think is gorgeous. The honey and the stone fruit is having a big role to play at this stage.
Absolutely,
a couple years
absolutely.
After, yeah.
That's very true, because for some of the wines that you have selected tonight, recently we had already a vintage change within our, say, portfolio, within our range. However, all the wines that we are going to taste, that I'm going to present to you, I do equally have exactly the vintage that we are going to have tonight. Okay, cool. Yeah. While you just lay back and relax a bit and enjoy the evening so far, have a first taste of the wine, I would like to start my presentation with a short video about Kaltern. I hope you can even hear the.
We don't have sound.
You don't have sound?
No.
Sorry for that. So seeing that you don't have sound, maybe I'll comment a little. All you see is basically the positioning of Cantina Kaltern wines, meaning enjoying life. The Dolce Vita is way of, enjoying our lake, where we can practice a lot of pleasure, and of course enjoying the evening or time with a good glass of wine from Kaltern. Pictures, however, you can.
We're not getting any sound at all now, Martin.
Oh, okay. So we may eventually skip the video.
Yeah, I think so.
And start. So basically with the wine, yes, as I said before, we have Pinot Bianco, Vial, intermediate line, meaning a certain complexity, still a certain freshness. I just tried it, and at least my bottle is simply perfect. We have this typicity of the fruits. We have the pear. We have the golden delicious apple. Eventually, what I do feel, and again, it's always very subjective in describing the wines.
Yeah, that yellow, that golden delicious apple is exactly what it's giving on this side of the ocean as well. It's really delicious. Again, still keeping that purity of spirit. It's great.
Yeah, correct. In terms of like vinification, later on, I'm going to speak about our different standard product lines. We have classic line, we have so-called intermediate selection line, and on top we have our crew line named Quintessenz. We are going to have wines of all the three different quality lines tonight. Later on, I'm going to speak a bit more about the differences between a Pinot Bianco of classic line, a Pinot Bianco of selection, and of course, Pinot Bianco of the Quintessenz, just to eventually make you familiar with what might classic in Kaltern mean, what might selection mean, and what might Quintessenz mean. First of all, however, a little bit of background about Cantina Kaltern. We are placed in a far north of Italy, bordering with Austria, bordering with Switzerland. So we are basically up in the mountains. And later on, when you will see some of the pictures like this one, you may not at first expect this to be Italy. Indeed, we are on the Italian side of the border. However, you see up there, we are right in midst of the mountains, surrounded by the mountains. Yeah, we are basically bilingual because up to the end of World War I, this place used to be part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So still nowadays, 60% of the population is of German mother tongue, like me, for instance, but everybody grows up bilingual in German and Italian language, seeing that at the age of 6, German people do learn Italian at school and the other way around. So basically we grow up bilingual or indeed trilingual for those who add on any other languages. If you consider that this part of Italy used to be Austrian and thus German speaking before World War I, nowadays we would say that Alto Adige can be considered as the oldest German speaking wine region, although being part of Italy and us carrying Italian passport. So we do look back to more than 3,000 years of wine growing history. Funny enough, we are producing in Alto Adige only 0.7% of all the wines of Italy with 5,300 hectares. On the other hand, we have a very high top level of qualitatively high wines with 98% of all the wines DOC classified. I'm quite sure that you know about the Italian classification of wines, like starting with table wine, followed by IGT wines, DOC and DOCG wines. So I'm not going to speak too long about this. However, Alto Adige produces mostly DOC wines, and 98% of all the production in Alto Adige is classified this DOC. That's very high level. Overall, we produce about 20 different grape varietals, 60% of those whites, 40% reds. And the vineyards, as I spoke before about mountains, the vineyards are in between 200 and 1,000 meters above sea level, 160 wineries producing all over 40 million bottles. So we go straight to Kaltern. This is a picture of the village of Kaltern. In behind, you see the mountains. The white on top of the mountain, called Mendola Mountain, is snow indeed. So during winter times, and it already starts slowly to getting winter time in here, we do expect to have some snow in a couple of weeks' time. So speaking about climate, indeed, what we have is thanks to the Alps, thanks to the so-called Dolomite Mountains, a protection in the north against the say northern winds and the influences which are not very much helping us. On the other hand, we are open towards the south, towards Italy, so we do all get the Mediterranean influences from the south. We have 300 days of sun per year, of course, essential for growing wines. And another very important and essential impact definitely is the large difference between temperatures during day and during night, which are quite remarkable. Two details: we have two winds visiting Kaltern every day. The so-called Mendola breeze is bringing the cold wind from the north. And in the afternoon, we have always the so-called Ora wind coming from Po Valley, from Lake Garda side, which helps us basically to get the Mediterranean influences. Very important, there you see another picture of Kaltern, is the lake itself. Because the lake Kaltern, in German language, Kaltersee or Lago di Caldaro, has got a double meaning in our place. Because on one side, yes, it's the lake itself, so the liquid, the lake, which is the warmest lake in the Alps. So we have plenty of tourists visiting, and we are very happy that we are a tourist area, especially during COVID times. We suffered quite a lot, relying very much on tourists to visit us. The second meaning of Kaltersee is the varietal, which we would call in Italian language Schiava. However, in our case, in German language, it's called Kaltersee, and this Kaltersee is exactly the denomination of DOC area of our place. Tonight, we are not going to have any Kaltersee or Schiava wine. However, I would say it's definitely one of the best choices, particularly for Singapore and the Asian countries, because it's generally versatile. It needs to be served at the right temperature, so it goes with almost every food pairing, particularly as it comes to Western food. Okay, looking into the history of Cantina Kaltern, we look back to more than 120 years of history, being founded in the year 1900 with the so-called Erste Kellerei, or literally meaning the first winery, followed 1925, the new winery, merged together in 96 to first and new winery. On the other side, we have 1906, the Famous Winery, 1908, the Jubilee Winery, merged together 1992 into Cantina Kaltern, and the two big remaining cooperatives merged once more together in 2016, becoming Cantina Kaltern. Speaking about cooperatives, because indeed we are a cooperative winery with 590 members, growing and elaborating all over 440 hectares of land. The meaning of cooperatives in Alto Adige is a different one than in other parts of Italy, in other parts of Europe. Why? Because we do have little land only, thus the owners of the land can fully focus on quality, while cooperatives in general are pretty known for doing bigger quantities. We are a cooperative, yes, but the focus fully lays on quality. Out of the 4 mergers into the 5th one has also another meaning. The digit 5 plays a certain role for us. As I said, 4 mergers into a 5th. We have 5 core varietals, which we are going to talk about later on. And we have made of these 5 core varietals a own line, our crew line named Quintessenz. That's reason behind the name giving of the line. Cantina Kaltern, today, we are owned by 590 vintner families that, as I said before, are growing altogether 440 hectares. This means every family basically has to look at 1 football field of land. This is not much. Not everyone can live from this. However, it gives us the possibility as a winery to produce high-end, top qualities of wines, and that's reason that we do put it a bit this way. Although we are owned by the 590 members, we do have 590 people out in the fields that daily are interested in producing high quality. I think I'm not going to lose too much time as it comes to cultivation. However, yeah, well, we have all the different trellis system, pergola and modern Guyot as well. So we are pretty much up to date and according to state-of-the-art technology as it comes to the cellar. However, seeing that everything's still, of course, harvested by hand, also due to the way how the land is made up here in the mountains. So we do not use any like harvesting machines or anything else. Everything is done with love, with heart, and with the own hands. Getting a bit more concrete, speaking about varietals, we heard about Alto Adige, 60 whites, 40 reds. Kaltern is still a bit, I would say, almost 50-50, because we have a high share of this Schiava Kaltern grape. However, we do also grow a lot of other reds alike. Our 5 co-varietals basically would be on the white side, the Pinot Bianco and the Sauvignon, 2 wines that I'm going to present anyway tonight, as well as Schiava and Cabernet Sauvignon, followed by the 5th, which is Moscato Giallo, however, in form of passito, so dessert wine, sweet wine with quite a high residual sugar. If I am too fast, if I'm speaking too fast.
No, you're doing well. I've just got my eye on the time, Martin. We should hopefully be looking at the second wine now, if we can.
Absolutely. One last sentence about this one, Fair and Green. Yes, we are certified sustainable with a certification body that helps us to get better and better. We are the first Italian producer and the first European cooperative having obtained this Fair and Green certificate. We even get a lot of other awards. This is just an extract of top awards, but now I'm coming to the point. James Suckling started 2 years ago rating our wines with quite a remarkable success. Robert Parker, wine advocate, equally, we get high ratings, we get very good accolades, which we are very happy. And the highlight of last year, yes, indeed, we got the 2nd consecutive time, the 3 glasses of Gambero Rosso for our Schiava, our Kaltersee. So speaking about our wines and making this short excursion, as I said before, we have here the so-called classic line with a lot of varietals, whites and reds alike. Intermediate selection on top, we have our Quintessenz. What does this mean? Classic line basically is the relaxed enjoyment. So shall be latest vintage, shall be young, shall be fresh, shall make fun for another glass. This goes for whites and reds alike. Most of the whites and reds are vinificated in stainless steel or large wooden or large cement casks. While we have this intermediate selection line, there we have not always single vineyards, but at least we are selecting definitely the vineyards with grapes which can then make it into selection line. And on top, really the top selection of the grapes, the top selection of vineyards, sometimes also single vineyards can make it into Quintessenz. Tonight, as the last wine, we are gonna have our one of our best sellers, definitely, and one of the most popular wines, our Cabernet Sauvignon out of this line. Very briefly, we have some special lines as well, so-called Kunststück, being the nature's vintage masterpiece. Selected grape varietals every year changing, and limited edition. We always make the number of magnum bottles of the digits of the year. Just for better understanding, 2014 with the Pinot Bianco, we produced 2014 magnum bottles of this wine, and so on. The next wine that is coming under the Kunststück line is a Pinot Grigio. We are going to launch in November, and I hope, Lou, Robert, I can eventually, if you agree, send you some bottles for tasting and for trying this new, definitely top of the top wine. Last but not least,
I must say on that point, the reason I haven't bought those is because I'm worried about the translation and slipping of the tongue, as you actually pronounce it in English. Robert, you might be able to do it better than me, but my fear is that I will get that completely wrong and offend everyone in the room.
Oh, no, I think there's a strong chance we can get past the pronunciation of it.
Mate, it's a very steep cliff if you get it wrong, though.
I know what we're speaking about.
We're talking about Quintessence. Yeah. It's interesting because I've compared the first three wines together now, and it's so extraordinary to see the quality of the Quintessence. Beautiful palate weight, beautiful silkiness about it. Martin, how do you feel about the cellaring of this wine? Does one look at it in the same context as one does Bordeaux Blanc? Do you see it in the same paddock, or is it something that should be drunk now?
Well, we do usually recommend it a bit this way. I mean, all our wines, even the white classics, you can easily store for 2, 3, 4 years, up to 4 years. However, what we recommend is better consume, better drink the classic line wines. The younger, the better, I would say. Yeah. Later on, we are going to have.
I'm talking about the Quintessence, actually.
Oh, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, for sure. The two other levels, for sure, one drinks them right away. I'm just particularly interested in the Quintessence.
Well, if you speak about the Quintessenz wines, there we have whites and reds alike.
The Sauvignon Blanc, the third wine that we're looking at tonight, 2019.
No, actually tonight, if I'm not mistaken, you choose the Cabernet Sauvignon, right?
No, we're looking at Cantina Quintessence Sauvignon Blanc 2019. It's our third wine. You'll have a look in the chat box. You'll see the lineup of the wines tonight.
Yeah, I see. However, there is then a mistake on my end, because I think this one was sold out and we changed it to classic line.
Never mind, but let's carry on with what we've got in front of us then. My question was, do you look at Quintessence Sauvignon Blanc as a cellaring wine or something that should be drunk straight away? Okay.
Absolutely. It has aging potential. You can definitely store it. You can definitely cellar it and keep it there for several years.
Yeah.
It might be that it changed a little bit the characteristics. However, it's definitely it has a potential for aging.
Okay, absolutely. Because what I'm seeing in this 19 is still a very high quality acid, which if you're south of the equator in the world, it wouldn't be holding it particularly well. But certainly it's showing, it's very clearly, the quality of the acid is very clearly top shelf. It's quite impressive. I see we only have a few bottles of that left at the stage. 2 or 3 bottles, then it's all gone.
If I may pre-announce, Robert, if you allow, this 19 vintage is sold out. So for indeed 2.5 months already, I couldn't even find one bottle of the wine. This means our Quintessenz Sauvignon Blanc is more and more appreciated by the people. We just recently launched the next vintage, the 2020, and it's selling very well. It's very much appreciated by the people.
It also helps that you have a 93 rating from Wine Advocate, which is off the charts for such a humbly priced wine. It's probably has a lot to do with the market presence that it's made for us in the last 18 months or so. I think we've had it about that long. Is that right, Lou?
Yeah.
No, this vintage
Early 2021, something like that.
this vintage we've only had for about 6 months.
Oh shit, then it's gone really quickly.
This one, yeah. What I try and do, because they've got such a vast array of wines across the various levels, I try and get a spread of everything. So,
Okay.
and when we first started with Cantina Kaltern, we sort of went 30 dozen, and now we're easily doing a pallet at a time, and aiming to get it up to 2 pallets a year. Because once people try it, they go, "Wow!"
Yeah, it's dynamite. I remember the first time I ever had them with you here in Singapore, somewhere in Orchard Road at a restaurant, and every single one was faultless. The point that you made in the chat room about emulating the sort of laser focus of the wines, the same way that Greystone does, is spot on. There's just nothing wrong with anything that we're tasting tonight, which is really quite unusual.
But I've got to say, the one thing that's working for them is global warming or climate change or whatever you want to call it. It's actually working in favor of these guys.
Because of the altitude and
the altitude,
Correct.
they're getting the grapes riper. Yeah. I mean, I come from an Italian family, as most of you know. The wines from Alto Adige 20 years ago were sort of liked, but generally considered to be underripe. Generally, because they always struggled to get the grapes right. Nowadays, however, whereas down on the plain they're becoming overripe.
Yeah.
Guys up at altitude like these guys, they're right in a sweet spot now, and they're getting ripeness, and that's why from nowhere, Advocate, Spectator, Suckling, and everyone has gone, these guys are making fantastic wines. Yeah,
I think Martin was showing a slide earlier about Suckling. It's really only been the last 3 years that he's released ratings, and they're all extremely positive, which is a really good barometer of what's going on in terms of global focus on the wine, on the region, and Kaltern in particular.
Correct. Indeed, the 2020 vintage of the Quintessenz Sauvignon Blanc was in the finals of the Gambero Rosso as well. Could not make it. It made another, but it was in the finals. Instead, we got the Cinque Grappoli, which is quite an important accolade from an Italian rater or rating agency. Right. So we're very happy with this wine. And frankly, it's just an advice, Lou and Robert. If I may recommend, please hurry up eventually if you are interested to buying the other case of this Sauvignon, because it's
lose the tree that you need to shake when it comes to that. Thankfully, I just sell what arrives. On that note,
Martin, I look forward to you shaking my tree.
Yeah.
Now there's a question here from Colin.
Yeah.
And he's asking,
yes, please,
regarding the trellising, what determines what goes on to pergola or what goes on to guyot? Is it the variety, or is it just the history of the terroir or what?
What a lovely question. Thank you very much for raising that question. Indeed, what we have mostly on pergola is our traditional Schiava grapes. Yeah. So almost still all the Schiava grows on pergola, while all the others slowly are moved onto guyot trellis. Yeah.
So with an eye on the clock, can we go now to the Gewürztraminer?
Definitely we will. I'm going to skip anything else. This one sold out, unfortunately. Pinot Grigio, we originally foresaw. However, let us move forward as Robert just proposed. Sauvignon, sorry for the mistake. I thought it was the classic line.
No problem. It changed a couple of times.
It went backwards and forwards a few times. That's all right, man. That was,
sorry for that. Anyway, we reached now one of the most autochtone varietals in our area, which is the Gewürztraminer. In our case, again, we have a selection line, the intermediate line, called Campaner. Campaner basically is the name of a former single vineyard. That's the reason why this name is Campaner. So here we have this particularity of a very strong characteristic varietal name, Gewürztraminer. Again, Lou, you will say nobody can pronounce this word outside of Alto Adige, and you are right. However, just to explain where this name comes from, tramin is the name of a village, which is our neighbor village here. That's the real origin of the Gewürztraminer. If you consider now, and I invite you to pour the Gewürztraminer, you will immediately have on one side the color, which is much more gold than we had before with the Vial Pinot Bianco. Please take your first nose, and you will immediately feel a very characteristic nose.
This is gorgeous. This is absolutely gorgeous.
It is indeed.
Unbelievable.
You know, what's impressive about it for me is that there's a lot of other Gewürz from around the world. It's one of those cherished varietals that white wine makers love to make, but there's a subtlety in this wine that doesn't come through very often. It's just very gentle and nuanced, and I think that's particularly appealing. Lou, what was the Kaltern that you brought to that lunch a couple of weeks ago? Do you remember? I think that was a more special one, right?
It was a Nussbaumer.
Oh, okay.
Which is actually from up the road at Tramin.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Because that one was fatter and oilier, whereas this one I think has a real nuance, a gentleness to it that I love. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah. Basically, all our selection wines, and I include this Gewürztraminer Campaner.
Yeah.
Once you open, the wine is there. It's immediately present. You know, you can just open and drink and pour, and it's immediately there. Typicity is there. And this wine, if I may say my recommendation, it perfectly pairs with a lot of Asian, Chinese cuisine dishes, equally as for the Indian cuisine, although spicy sometimes, but this wine perfectly balances the spiciness in Indian food. However, I could very well imagine, and I may say this eventually, having a little background also with Asian cuisine and Chinese cuisine, it's the wine that would definitely pair perfectly, to my opinion, with your signature dish, with chili crab or with pepper crab, either at Palm Beach or Clark.
Yeah, you definitely have visited Singapore before.
Robert, on that point, Robert dragged me to a Sri Lankan restaurant last week, where I thought I'd bring a excuse me, but I bought a Tramin, Cantina Tramin rather than Cantina Kaltern, because that's what I had at home. So I bought a Gewürz there, the Nussbaumer, and we had it with the food, and it just
really worked, right? It was fantastic.
Really beautiful.
If you had a chance, try our Campaner. Try it with a pepper crab or a chili crab in jumbos. It will be perfect. Shall we eventually move forward? Robert, I see you looking at the watch. Shall we proceed?
Yeah, there's a question from Colin before we leave the Gewürz. Is cold maceration the normal way to deal with Gewürztraminer?
Yes, well, I would say so. However, maceration in general with whites is not anymore that common that it used to be in the past. However, with the Gewürztraminer, yes, definitely, we will say cold maceration in our case for like one night that we are doing it about 12 hours. And you see it from the color, basically it gets exactly in this shortness of time, the right color extracted from the fruit. Yeah, correct.
All right, on to Pinot Nero.
On to Pinot Nero, lovely. Pinot Nero, of course, the king of the wines, and particularly growing well in Alto Adige. Yeah, in our case, we have now a classic line wine, as long as I am not mistaken. However, this is perfectly fine because there is a world opening with the Pinot Nero, and I could speak hours and hours about Pinot Nero. However, considering ours, yes, classic line is very accessible. It's very drinkable. The trend generally goes a bit away from having this very present wood notes in the Pinot Nero. This, you know what I mean? This jammy, jam presence.
It's so nuanced. It's almost a little bit shy in my glass. I'm just wondering, after the Cirque du Soleil of the Gewürztraminer before, I think my palate's not ready for something as nuanced and quiet as this. But the one thing you're right about the gentleness of it, Martin. The thing that strikes me the most about this wine is the texture and the balance. There's something very beautifully integrated about the wine. The length is there. I think another year or 18 months, it will start to show more in the mid palate, which is what I'm missing at the moment.
That's true. However, we have to consider it's a classic line.
Yeah.
So eventually, immediately with the selection line called Saltner, we would have another world of wine in front of us. So this shall be young, it shall be fresh, it shall make fun. And it shall make fun for a second glass eventually. This is the right wine to pair with something easy eventually. Yeah, it's not a too sophisticated wine. However, it makes fun. It makes fun. Absolutely. Yeah. Later on, or the next wine, once we are then gonna shift to our surprise or the wine, the last wine today.
Yeah.
You will immediately feel the difference between classic Pinot Nero and the Cabernet Sauvignon. Then in Quintessenz, there is a world in between. Yeah.
But before you move on, there, Robert, are you getting a note of toffee?
Yeah. I was looking for caramel, but toffee's right.
Yeah, I said caramel, and then Di here corrected me as she's wont to do, and said no, it's toffee.
She's right. It's a winning thing because that lift at the back palate is what that is all about, and for me, that's the real win of the wine as it is right now.
Yeah.
So the other thing that's really starting to surprise the whole world, right, is that obviously with Burgundy prices going stupid, when you're getting quality Pinot like this at altitude, nuanced, not with New World heft, but with Old World charm and nuanced levels at $50 for something like this.
Yeah,
that's why I fell in love with it immediately. I was like, no, how much can I get?
That descriptor charming is too used, but it's a word.
Never for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm kind of reaching for it here because everything about it is so tailored and in its place. It's super impressive.
Yeah, to my opinion, it has got really nice tannins, not too much for rather light Pinot Nero. And what we do recommend, and this can also be eventually considered, to my opinion, for Singapore, we recommend even to serve Pinot Neros
a little cold.
A little cold. Anyway, it turns warm on its own with considering 30 degrees in Singapore 24/7. So pretty much, absolutely. Shall we?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Because here we do come to a real highlight. We come to our Cabernet Sauvignon Quintessenz line in the vintage 2018. And although selling or presenting Cabernet Sauvignon to guests, to consumers around the world is not an easy thing, seeing that Cabernet Sauvignon grows all around the globe. It grows in Napa Valley, it grows in Down Under and everywhere. However, we would say that we are, to some extent, we have our expertise in the Cabernet Sauvignon. This is our red that we believe that we are good in. So I would like to invite you to pour the Cabernet Sauvignon 2018, and you will immediately feel what kind of complex world you have in front of you, especially as the wines that you got delivered or you picked up were already portioned, in the sense that the bottle probably was open ahead and it got some hours of air. This is essential to this wine, because if you give it like 4 to 5 hours of air, you will have another wine, and then really you have a world in front of you.
Yeah, we actually use the aerator when we're decanting for the red wines, and I like to use it for Chardonnay as well. So we go the extra mile for it to make it look
in this case, if I may recommend of the last wine, keep a little bit, keep it there for another 2 hours and retry the wine again. Is opening to all the various fruit notes and all these like slight tobacco or dark chocolate as well, that pairs perfectly with the cherries and raspberries that you will feel immediately present. I had actually a very interesting experience with this wine, because before changing or before coming to Kaltern, I bought one bottle. Actually, my wife bought me. I opened and I was totally disappointed, because I poured the wine and I said, well, there's not much. 24 hours later, I said, well, the wine is open, it is paid. I'm going to drink a second glass. What I had in the glass was a totally different wine, very rich in all these different forest fruits. The cherry, of course, what we call Amarena cherry, or these hard cherries, is there.
When you're talking about Amarena, is that like the glazed cherry?
Yeah, correct.
Sorry,
I
think they call it in. Yeah, okay.
We call it Amarena cherry or hard cherry eventually. Yeah, it's this very intense cherry fruit. And what I do personally find, seeing that this wine basically stays 18 months in barrique, in small barrels, it's not that you just feel the wood in the nose and on the palate. It's perfectly, to my opinion, equilibrated, balanced. So you have very present of fruits, but at the end you still have this very balanced.
I'm quite amazed that it spends 18 months in small barrique, because it must be very neutral oak, because you're not getting any kind of a strength of presence in the wine at all of oak, which is great.
Correct. What we do have is we have 50% is basically new barrique, 50 is used barrique. So doing this, we have probably found the right share of having the impact from the French oak barrel.
Yeah.
I got to say, when I first tried this wine and this style of wine before Martin had even joined Kaltern, and I was really skeptical because you front up to Cantina Kaltern, you're up 1,000 meters, you're looking over the Dolomites, and you go, how can they make Pinot and Cabernet in the same patch? I thought, no.
Yeah.
One of them's not going to be good. So I tried the Pinots. I went, these are really good. I thought, oh, here we go. I'm going to get a really unripe, sappy, green Cabernet, right? And I thought, oh, this is going to be really unpleasant. But instead, what you get is this. There's a beautiful ripeness to it without it going into the spectrum of over-ripeness, obviously.
Yeah.
But the green element is actually something that harks back to what you used to remember the best of Bordeaux to be. Just a slight green element that makes it interesting, keeps it taut. There's nothing there that makes you feel hot or
there's no flab on it.
No, unlike me, there's absolutely no fat on this at all. But it's not a mean leanness. It's a taut leanness, which I just find refreshing to go back to. It's still ripe, but it's lean. And I actually, it's refreshing to go back to a Cabernet of this style. It's sort of like old school.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, correct. I just, before entering our today's tasting session, I checked the other link that you said, and I would like to address one message to all the attendants. As long as the wine exchange team is selling this wine at that retail price that you are showing, go straight away and buy everything you can get. Anyway, well, basically, seeing that my time is over, we are pretty much at the end. I'm fully open for questions. However,
I have two questions. Questions. My first one is, how on earth does Andrea manage to work with 590 personalities when it comes to the wine? It comes to the viticulture.
If I may ask, very good question. I love it because Tyroleans, seeing that we are surrounded by the mountains, we are considered not easy people. Yeah. So Andrea has to handle 590 not that easy people.
Crazy.
But I mean, they fully trust us. They fully trust in our expertise. They trust Andrea that he is giving the right advices. Andrea has got, of course, a team of people that is on a daily basis out in the fields.
Okay. Looking at everything, because that critical moment that I seem to hear from winemakers all over the world is that precise time to take it off the vine is everything. And if you're dealing in a place that's this hilly and this mountainous, just one little tiny 10 square meter patch of vines probably might need a different period of time for harvest. So the logistics must be unbelievable from what I can see.
It is indeed. And this, Robert, brings me to the invitation. Of course, I mean, Lou, you have already visited, but Robert, come here and then you will understand how wine growing in Kaltern works.
And thank you so much.
Pleasure to host you.
Thank you so much.
It's a challenge indeed, but we are pretty much a good working running team. Yeah,
sounds great. Then Colin, I think I saw another question. Martin, are you a fan of Haas? With Mr. Steiner, Haas wines, Haas.
Hass.
Haas. I don't know it. Haas.
Oh, Haas. Well, Definitely I am. And I have to say, unfortunately, Franz Haas, he passed away on past February after a skiing accident or a heart attack in, well, anyway, he was a pioneer of Pinot Noir in Alto Adige. He was an icon. Franz Haas is an icon, and his lifetime expertise was all about Pinot Nero. And although I do work for another winery, my utmost appreciation and honor to Franz Haas and what he did during his lifetime with Pinot Nero in Alto Adige, because he was the one influencing all of us, all the others, with his way of growing Pinot Nero. Yes, my answer is I am a fan of Franz Haas.
Fantastic, thank you. Any more questions from anybody? I know Lou has a question for you at the end, but I'm just waiting for anything else from anyone. No? Okay, over to you, Lou.
Lovely, there are my contact details, but I'm sure that Lou and Robert will be happy to help. They are even equally experts in Kaltern wines than I am. However, if I can help, this is my contact details. If not, I say thank you very much for attending. It was a great pleasure to speak to you in Singapore. Take care,
Martin,
stay healthy.
Martin, I have a traditional question that I ask all of our guests, and that is, when you're not under pressure, no one's watching you, no one's looking at you, no one's examining you, what do you like drinking the most, which is not from Cantina Kaltern? What's your favorite drink?
Well, as you know, if I would turn the question to you, you would probably also have some difficulties to reply to it. I mean,
None whatsoever. None. I have no pride. None whatsoever.
It's not my favorite, but seeing that we do not have any proper Riesling grapes, I do like very much German Riesling, aged German Rieslings at a certain value quality that I do personally like very much. However, I do also like very much the more southern Italian or central Italian Tuscany heavy reds, that the Super Tuscan, that I do like very much. Nevertheless, I'm a lover of our wines as well, because it's the interesting of the world of wines that every wine has something that touches you to some extent. Yeah. But thank you very much for the question. I would say Riesling, but also Super Tuscan is a bit of my cup of tea.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you, everybody. Great Thursday night. We're taking a couple of weeks off from tastings on Thursdays, but back again beginning of November with the regular Thursday night tastings. You'll see some notes from us as we roll them out. Thanks very much again, Martin. I appreciate it. Hope to see you for real sometime soon.
Will be my pleasure and honor. Take care.
Thank you.
Good health. Good luck to everyone.
All right. Good night, everyone.
To Singapore. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Ciao, ciao.